Hey, on my mama, folk, these birds petty as hell. I know they didn't do this in one night. They bet not have did this in one night, folks. They did two of them. Black and white, folks. Fuck segregation. Oh, shit, they fucking shit up. Where these birds from, folks? These birds hate people. Oh, my God, folks. They is shitting up a storm out here. Literally. Look at that shit. Damn.
She likes balls. Hey guys, it's your boy, which means it's time for another video. This time, I hope you're ready for the weirdest boner of your life, because today's video is on Syndra, and let me tell you, this bitch is gonna play with balls until either she or you dies. Kyle, are you aware that we brought the Jonas Brothers back?
We did?
Yeah, because we were talking about them in the
Oh,
Nico
that's
video
right.
about how they sang the American Dragon Jake Long theme song.
Holy shit, we
And
brought
then
the
they
Jonas
came
Brothers
back. We summoned them from the ether. You and I did that. So what the fuck is a Syndra? Syndra is the burst mage of your dreams, and the queen of that thing where you try to kill a minion but it lives on like 3 HP, so you try letting the next one get hit by your own minions one extra time, but then it dies because all the minions attack it at once. Anyway, Syndra is badass, and not just because she has a badass, if you know what I mean. Get it? Because she's hot. But who really is Syndra?
Cause I ain't no hollaback girl. I ain't no hollaback girl. Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
People like to say thick thighs save lives, but that is a fucking lie, because Syndra is a killing machine. Syndra's lore is that she is powerful as fuck. Like, duh, but when I say she's powerful, I mean that's the whole point of her story. Syndra's powers all come from her emotions. When she was little, the people of her village would blame her for everything that went wrong. This eventually got to her and she had an outburst destroying the village, causing the villagers to be angry. This forced her family to move. While traveling, they came across an old hermit who trained people to control their magic. Syndra attempted to learn from him, but failure only made her angrier, and eventually led to more outbursts. She discovered that the old hermit was not only teaching her to control powers, but actively weakening them. This made her mad, and in an outburst, she killed him and even lifted his temple into the sky. A fun fact about Syndra is that her Justicar skin represents what she would probably look like today if she never killed her master. Another fun fact is that the temple she lifted into the sky can be seen in the background of her main splash art. So let's talk about playing Syndra. A common misconception about Syndra is that she's easy or she takes no skill. And this is kind of true. She can definitely blow up a single champion pretty easily, but maximizing her damage in teamfights can be somewhat difficult. A good Syndra player is a damage and crowd control monster, but a bad Syndra looks more like this.
Because you can't do it. Or you can't do this on concrete.
Syndra is one of my favorite champions to play, not because of how much damage she has, but because of how unique she is. She plays completely differently than just about any other champion. While most of the champions focus on positioning and reflexes, Syndra takes a more tactical approach. In order to play her effectively, you have to spend time setting up before you can actually get a payoff. Let's start at the beginning with her Q. Syndra's kit revolves almost entirely around her Q, Big Black Ball. After a short detonation time, Syndra spawns a ball at her target location. It does a decent amount of damage and leaves an orb on the field which Syndra can then manipulate with her other abilities. This ability should almost always be max first in my opinion, but keep in mind doing so does not reduce the cooldown or increase the damage dealt by her other abilities. Despite this, you should still max it first, because it's your most consistent form of damage and the closest thing you have to a spammable. Not only that, but Syndra's passive also gives her abilities extra properties when fully leveled. For her Q, the balls will do a bonus 15% damage to enemy champions. Lastly, the balls remain on the map for 6 seconds and can be manipulated by Syndra's other abilities. A lot of information, but overall pretty simple, right? Let's change that. Syndra's W is called... and it does exactly what you think. Syndra can pick up one of her orbs and reposition it. Wherever it lands, it does a good amount of damage and slows enemies. Maxing this ability gives it an extra 20% true damage. But wait, there's more. Syndra can move more than just her own spheres. Other things she can move include, but are not limited to, enemy minions, jungle buffs, Heimer turrets, Malzahar goons, Daisy, Tibber, Scuttle Crab, and every other jungle camp minus epic monsters. This ability is the funniest thing in the entire fucking game. Sitting in a bush while the enemy jungler takes blue buff, only to pick it up in the last second and run away with it, is hilarious. Now Syndra is all about keeping as many balls on the map at once as possible. Her W is the main way you do this. As long as you are holding a ball, it will not disappear. When one is about to vanish, pick it up and spawn another one. So now you have 2 in play. The more balls on the map, the stronger you are. Like I said earlier, her balls last 6 seconds before disappearing. Before they go, they will change color slightly, and if you're using the Star Guardian Syndra skin, like you should be, the spheres will make a face to let you know they're about to disappear. Speaking of Star Guardian Syndra, Kyle thinks it looks like Tharja from Fire Emblem Awakening, but personally, I think it looks like a purple Aqua from Konosuba. Let me know in the comments what you think. Poor man. Okay, I know I said earlier that her W is where things get complicated, but I completely lied to you. Her E, or as I like to call it, 8-ball pool, is one of the hardest to master abilities in the game, because it's just fucking math. Syndra creates a cone of light damage coming from her body in the direction of your choosing. Any enemy hit by this gets knocked back a small distance. Your E can also hit any balls Syndra has on the map. The balls will get knocked back a much longer distance though. The angle they are sent is based on Syndra's position relative to them, as well as the angle you use her E. If your E hits a ball and then the ball hits an enemy champion, that champion will be stunned. The closer Syndra is to whatever she hits, the farther it travels. The drawback is, this also gives enemies more time to react. This ability is simultaneously your only form of self-peel as well as your only form of hard crowd control, which in my opinion makes it extremely balanced. A new Syndra player might think that they have to choose between using this ability either offensively or defensively, while a more experienced player will know how to use both. Maxing this ability increases its width, which makes it easier to hit more balls at once, but also harder to control, especially when you're close to them. Speaking of being hard to control, this ability can be really finicky, especially when you're close to the target. Because there are so many different things that go into the calculation of where the ball goes, if you're close to it, it can be kind of hard to predict what's going to happen. Give him the good suck in exchange for the V-Buck. And now, we finally get to her ult. The power of God and anime. Outplayed. Now, this ability, I think, is what gives Syndra her bad rep. Well, that and the fact that before her mini rework, she could kind of one-shot people with a Q. Now, I'm not usually a fan of targeted abilities, since I feel like they involve less skill expression, but this is one of the ones I'm more or less okay with. The reason is because of all the planning and prep work that goes into a successful ult. By default, Syndra's ult takes the 3 balls hovering around her at all times and throws them at her target. This does an okay amount of damage, but it really isn't anything special, especially compared to other burst mages today like Zoe or Nico. But here's the kicker. Her ult manipulates every ball she has in play at the time. This is where the skills I told you about earlier come in. At max level, every ball will do 180 plus 20% of her AP as damage in a raw ult. So in total, it will do 540 plus 60% of her AP.
That's a lot of damage.
You're also holding a ball with W and have 2 other balls on the map because you should have max CDR. You will now do 1080 damage plus the AP percent.
Now that's a lot of damage!
Now I know that sounds like a ridiculous amount of damage, but in truth, you won't usually be using max ball ults since it isn't really practical. On the other hand, you should never ult with less than 5 orbs, since you are just missing out on damage. Not only does this ability do some massive damage, but the orbs that spawn behave as regular balls. You can pick them up and manipulate them afterwards, allowing for further skill expression. Some situations might need you to land a stun before engaging, while others might call for you to just ult with 3 or 4 balls and then E to crowd control a large amount of people after. All in all, Syndra is a mixed beast. In some ways, she's just a simple burst mage who's easy to pick up and play with simple abilities and high damage. On the other hand, the interactions between her abilities drastically increase her difficulty. She might not have the straightforward burst damage that some modern burst mages have, but she more than makes up for it in her teamfighting prowess. For me, she falls into that sweet spot of champion difficulty where she has a relatively low skill floor, but a relatively high skill ceiling, so that anyone can pick up and play her, but a more skilled player can take over a game. Once you understand the basics of Syndra, here are some extra tips to help you get to that next level. Number 1. Similar to Jarvan's flags, her balls do not have to land before they can be manipulated. I like to call this quick casting, and it's an important skill to playing Syndra. Landing E's with this method is more difficult because you can't see where you're aiming, but mastering it makes it drastically more difficult for enemies to dodge. Number 2. Your E has a much longer range than people often realize. Also, balls hit by your E do not stop once they hit a target. They will always reach their maximum distance unless obstructed by walls, making it a great teamfight and crowd control ability. Number 3. Speaking of her E, balls hit by your E cannot go through walls, but your E itself can. If you need to stun an enemy on the other side of a wall, either spawn the ball on that side or move it to that side with your W before pressing E. Number 4. Lastly, and most importantly, keep your distance. You have some peel, but otherwise no mobility, meaning if an enemy jumps on you without your E, you will go down, and fast. And that's pretty much all you need to know about Syndra. Now get out there and play with some balls.